It's Boston, spring of 1996. The city is busy in a familiar, predictable way. Morning trains rumble through the Green Line, the marketplaces around downtown crossing spill foot traffic toward Boston Common, and weekends bring families to the grass and brick paths that edge the park's ponds and fountains. The Thompsons live in a walk up a short ride away, and their Sundays are usually simple: errands, laundry, a grocery run, sometimes a park. David Thompson leaves early on weekdays, hard hat clipped to his belt, moving from one construction site to another. Margaret works as a teacher's aide at an elementary school, and the apartment holds the rhythms of a family of 5. Anna, 9, reads quickly and keeps schedules. Ben, 2, flings blocks and naps in short bursts. And Sophia, 5, is a child who gravitates toward motion and sound, fountains, birds, street musicians, always pulling slightly away to see more. On a warm Sunday afternoon, the Thompsons head to Boston Common. Isn't a special outing, it's routine, and that fact matters later. They choose a spot within sight of the central fountain. The crowd is medium thick: families, tourists with disposable cameras, vendors pushing carts with pretzels and soda. Sophia drifts closer to the fountain, a common behavior for her and not immediately concerning. There's a moment, one that would be measured in seconds if anyone had been timing, when Margaret looks down into the stroller at Ben, and David turns to answer Anna. Then, the moment passes, Margaret looks up, and Sophia is gone. Initial searches begin the way most do. Parents call out, scan the immediate area, walk loops, ask faces. Within minutes, park security hears and responds. By roughly 2:30 p.m., a call is placed to Boston Police. By 3:00 p.m., officers are on scene, and the transition from family search to coordinated operation begins. A mobile command post is selected near the fountain, a rectangle of authority defined by sawhorses and tape, with radios chattering constant updates. The first team on scene records the basic facts: missing child, female, 5 years old, last seen near the fountain, clothing description, time last seen, family contact information, any known medical concerns. The second team begins canvassing, concentric circles outward from the last known point, assigning sectors with clear boundaries: paths, lawns, monuments, edges of water. K-9 units are requested. When they arrive, handlers take scent articles from the family, small items Sophia's worn recently. The dogs run directed patterns along footpaths and grass and around benches, their handlers signaling the standard calls for pause, redirect, and check. Helicopters are authorized. Rotor sound adds pressure to the air above the common. The MBTA is contacted to flag entrances at Park Street in Arlington, and station personnel are briefed. Distribute photo, watch for a child matching description, monitor anyone with a child moving. Hurriedly. Officers pair up to cover exits: Beacon Street, Tremont, Boylston, making notes of individuals leaving with children, pushing strollers, or carrying bags large enough to conceal movement. By late afternoon, the missing child bulletin is printed and faxed to local news desks. Sophia's preschool photo is scanned. The media holds space for the image and basics: age, clothing, location, time. This is 1996. Information moves quickly enough, but not instantly, and police maintain control over what is released. A tip line number is established, staffed by operators with a script designed to capture and standardize reporting: name, phone, time of sighting, location, description, what drew attention, whether the caller can remain available for follow-up. The first evening is a race against the fading light. Sector searches are repeated with flashlights, bushes are probed with poles, ponds are checked along edges. Vendors are interviewed: hot dog carts, a pretzel stand, ice, cream, balloons. Their vantage points are good and their schedules stable. Each is asked for time frame, notable interactions, any arguments or disturbances, anyone lingering singularly around the fountain without apparent purpose. Names, if given, are logged. Descriptions, even rough, are written and flagged for cross-comparison with registered offenders rosters. The next morning, a larger search iteration begins. Officers pull historic maps of the common and overlay accessible routes and obstructed zones. Volunteers are sorted into teams, each with a map and a quadrant. The grid search term isn't ceremonial. It's a practice, assign lanes, walk heel to toe with eyes scanning at 45 degrees, mark anomalies, call out potential evidence, do not touch unless instructed. Any found item, hair ribbons, discarded toys, fabric pieces, is photographed, bagged, labeled, and logged with date, time, location, and finder. Chain of custody starts in the field and doesn't break. Who found? Who bagged? Who transported? Who stored? Detectives begin interviews with a structured approach. Family interviews are factual. Timeline, routines, any changes in schedule, who was present, who knew about the outing, whether the outing was planned or spontaneous. Questions are designed to surface patterns that could indicate premeditation by an outside actor. The Thompsons provide details. No recent unusual calls or encounters. The outing was decided that morning. The location near the fountain was chosen on arrival, not pre-planned. Sophia is friendly, known to wander within short distances. There were no known threats. Witness canvassing goes wider. Officers speak with buskers, guitarists, a juggler, a caricature artist, who often notice faces because they engage with them directly. Each is asked if they saw a child leaving with an adult, whether any adult attempted to coax a child, whether any interaction seemed out of pattern. The caricature artist remembers drawing a baita family near the fountain around the right time. A sketchbook is flipped, timestamps noted. The family is later contacted. They recall nothing unusual. The juggler notes a man in his 50s watching the crowd, but can't provide specifics beyond dark jacket, tan cap. The description is logged and high-level matching begins, generic but not discarded. Security footage review is limited. 1996, Boston doesn't have pervasive cameras around the common, and private establishments bordering the park are selective. Still, detectives request any tapes from nearby businesses, hotel lobbies, cafes, convenience stores that might have captured entrances or exits. Tapes are analog. Duplication requires time, and playback requires manual scanning. Officers sit with VCRs watching hour markers, speed scan forward through low-resolution images, marking frames where children and adults pass by together. Every marking is followed by a second review. Is there reason to think this pair is connected? Is the child tugging or being pulled? Is the adult's behavior directional or hurried? The majority of markings are routine family movements. Registered offenders in the area are checked, a necessary step, not a theory. The list is pulled, addresses mapped, probabilities ranked by proximity, and knock-and-talks are conducted. Compliance varies, and officers maintain a neutral tone, confirm whereabouts at the time, request consent to search if warranted, verify alibis. Many understand the scrutiny. Some request attorneys. None immediately overlap in a way that provides a direct lead. The process is documented for later review. The tip line begins to swell. Operators categorize calls using a triage system, Category A for immediate time-sensitive sightings, Category B for retrospective observations, Category C for theory-only calls with no direct observation. Category A calls trigger immediate dispatch. Officers go, interview, scan area. Category B calls generate scheduled follow-ups. Detectives arrange interviews, check corroboration, seek additional witnesses. Category C is logged but doesn't move resources. Over the first 48 hours, Category A produces several dispatches. A report of a child matching Sophia's description with a woman at the Park Street station, 10 minutes old. A man carrying a child swiftly toward Tremont Street. A child crying near the frog pond. Officers arrive, locate the referenced individuals, and stand down when matches fail. Wrong age, wrong clothing, wrong hair, not Sophia. The Frog Pond report turns out to be a toddler refusing sunscreen. Each cleared call is still logged. Patterns matter later. By the end of the first week, the operation shifts into a second phase. Broaden the radius, repeat the canvas, deepen interviews, clamp down on rumor. Detectives begin to build a timeline of the park's population density at quarter-hour intervals. At 2 p.m., heavy crowd. 2:15 p.m., vendor queue. 2:30 p.m., busker performance peak. 2:45 p.m., slight thinning. 3 p.m., notable cluster around the fountain. This helps determine whether an abduction could have occurred, unnoticed, or whether a wandering child could have slipped through gaps. The map overlays include choke points, paths that narrow and create natural bottlenecks where someone moving quickly with a child would be seen. Officers station observers at these points on subsequent days to watch for behaviors similar to those reported. Adults changing pace abruptly, scanning over shoulders, shielding a child's face, moving toward exits. Detectives begin a structured vendor review. Beyond interviews, they request receipts and cash logs to identify exactly when lines peaked. The goal: discover whether any queuing or service interruptions coincided with the time Sophia disappeared, which could indicate a distraction event. One cart vendor notes a brief interruption around 2:40 p.m., caused by a spilled soda and a crowd shift. That timestamp is cross-referenced with witness reports of the tan-cap man. The alignment is weak, general crowd noise, but it's logged. The MBTA coordination expands. Officers request token booth logs, not for identities, none are collected, but for flow rates. If there was a surge around 3:00 p.m. heading inbound, that might indicate crowd displacement. The data is crude and observational, but Park Street station staff recall no unusual spike in family units. Conductors on surface routes are contacted, given the flyer, and asked to radio in if they notice anything relevant. DNA samples are collected from the family for future use. This is procedural and not immediately actionable in 1996. It prepares for the possibility of later technological alignment. Officers explain chain of custody. Samples are stored according to lab protocol. Case numbers are attached. The process is quiet, clinical, and documented. Media engagement is controlled. The department updates once daily to avoid errors and to prevent rebroadcasting unfounded claims. Rumors begin to circle. This is consistent with high-profile missing child cases. The department's media liaison reminds outlets to rely on official statements and directs them to the tip line rather than private numbers. A segment on a local station runs Sophia's photo with a voiceover asking for information. It includes no sensational speculation. A talk radio show hosts a brief call-in about child safety at parks. Detectives do not participate, nor do they encourage theoretical calls that drain resources. As the second week unfolds, detectives conduct witness re-interviews. The purpose is to capture secondary details often surfaced after initial shock fades. A balloon vendor remembers a couple arguing near the fountain around the window. Detectives interview the couple, who were debating directions to the State House. They recall noticing a little girl near them, but not leaving with anyone. Their attention was inward, not outward. That detail helps contour the scene, but doesn't produce a lead. Search teams adopt a standardized pattern at dawn and dusk, times when the common shifts population types. Early morning draws joggers and dog walkers, dusk draws commuters cutting through. Detectives observe these flows and consider whether any nightly maintenance schedules, trash pickup, park ranger rounds, might have intersected with relevant occurrences. Maintenance crews are interviewed, schedules reviewed, and routes mapped. Nothing abnormal is recorded. Detectives also pull recent 911 call logs within a mile radius for the 24 hours surrounding the disappearance. They scan for disturbances, suspicious person calls, and any domestic incidents that could have spilled into public space. 2 suspicious person calls near Tremont Street at 1:50 p.m. are flagged. Those calls related to a man lingering without apparent purpose near a bench. Officers at the time responded, spoke with the man, and cleared him after determining he was waiting for a friend. His description is logged and compared with the tan cap report. The cap color and jacket don't align. The call is closed. Interagency coordination begins. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is notified. Standardized protocols are followed. Flyers go beyond Boston proper, Cambridge, Somerville, Brookline. Detectives contact state police to ensure highway patrol units are notified, even though the likelihood of an immediate highway transit is low after the elapsed time. Truck stops and gas stations within 30 miles receive flyers and a request to post them near registers, standard practice. The tip line volume increases with press coverage, and triage becomes more critical. The team refines categories with priority tags, proximity within Boston, timing within the day, and fidelity, first-hand observation, second-hand report, rumor. A rumor that a white van was seen circling the park generates multiple calls. Detectives approach this systematically, gather plate reports, if any, ask for time-specific details, and cross-check with traffic officers for citations or stops. No specific van is found to correlate with a precise time or action near the fountain. White van reports are common in rumor cycles and are treated with caution. A small set of calls describe a man fitting the tan cap description observed over multiple days in the common. Detectives assign plainclothes officers to observe during standard peak hours. They watch and log behaviors: who watches children, who moves without companions, who changes paths rapidly. The tan cap figure does not appear in the observation window, and the composite elements remain too generic to act upon. By the third week, detectives reconfigure their approach. They create a timeline board in the command room, a large printout of the common with overlaying transparency sheets. Each tip is a colored flag pinned to location and time. They cluster tips by type, sighting, behavior, noise mention, and look for patterns. Some clustering appears around the fountain and the south path to Tremont. That aligns with crowd flow, not necessarily with action. Still, the team deploys additional canvassing along that path, including checks of businesses facing Tremont for any external cameras. A pharmacy has a camera pointed at its entrance. The tape shows families entering and exiting. No child matching Sophia's clothing appears with a non-parent adult at the relevant time. The team logs and moves on. Registered offenders are rechecked with updated questions and curfews reviewed for compliance. Detectives also screen for individuals recently released from custody or recently moved into the area. Probation officers are contacted for coordination. Again, no match aligns cleanly with time and place. Volunteers continue to assist, but the operation is calibrated. Volunteers do not interview or handle potential evidence. They walk grids, distribute flyers, and staff information tables at park entrances under supervision. A standard briefing is given daily: what to look for, what to avoid, where to report. The biggest risk in large-scale volunteer operations is evidence contamination. The briefing repeats instructions: do not touch anything suspicious, flag, and alert. Detectives expand inquiries to park regulars, rangers, gardeners, maintenance. Rangers recall no children escorted by non-family adults at that time. Gardeners working the beds near the fountain saw a typical Sunday crowd. One notes a man kneeling by the fountain edge, possibly picking something up. That note is logged, and officers return to the site to check for small items previously missed. Nothing relevant is found. The case file thickens. Call logs, interview transcripts, search maps, evidence reference sheets, lab intake forms, and media releases. Each document is tagged by date and category. Detectives know cases that don't break early must be structured for endurance. Every detail must be retrievable months or years later. That discipline shapes the next steps. To cover peripheral possibilities, officers check shelters and hospitals for any intake of a child named Sophia or matching description. Hospitals report nothing, shelters likewise. Pediatric clinics in the EERET area are discreetly asked to watch for unfamiliar guardians with new child patients. Nothing surfaces. There's a brief focus on the fountain itself. Children's patterns around water are predictable: leaning in, tossing coins, stepping onto edges. Detectives confirm the fountain's depths and flow, ensure there's no possibility of a fall and concealment. Rangers verify no maintenance anomalies. Divers are not warranted. The fountain's structure doesn't support a concealment scenario. That line of inquiry is closed. False leads do occur. A caller insists he saw Sophia boarding a bus to Providence. Detectives confirm bus schedules, check with the driver, and review any station cameras. The child in question is identified as traveling with her aunt, paperwork in order. Another report places a child matching Sophia in a Quincy playground. Officers arrive, speak with the child's parents, and clear the match. Each cleared lead fuels public frustration, but detectives keep tone neutral in updates. The search continues, tips are appreciated, follow-ups are conducted. A smaller team begins work on composite sketches based on limited descriptions. In 1996, composites are hand-drawn or built from catalog features. Witnesses who mention the tan cap man sit with the composite artist. They struggle, memory narrows under stress, and the man they describe remains generic: older male, light skin, tan cap, dark jacket, average build. The composite is produced but not widely circulated to avoid contaminating witness memory and generating more false positives. Detectives review family routines again, this time with emphasis on patterns that might be visible to outsiders. The outing to the common isn't habitual. It's occasional. The location near the fountain wasn't predetermined. No one outside the family knew their Sunday plan. That reduces the likelihood of a targeted abduction by premeditated watchers and nudges probability toward opportunistic interaction, if abduction occurred at all. The other branch of the decision tree remains open, that a wandering child moved beyond sight and was picked up by someone acting with or without malice. In either case, immediate detection would have been hard in a crowd without a witness. At the end of the first month, the initial surge settles into a colder steadiness. The command post presence at the park winds down. The case moves into detective-led inquiry. Search grids have been completed and repeated. Vendor interviews have been exhausted. MBTA coordination continues in monitoring mode. The tip line remains open and staffed, but triage is refined to prioritize new, credible, time-linked information. The daily press briefings shrink. Updates are now periodic and substantive, not performative. The Thompson family continues to engage in basic advocacy. Flyers persist, information tables are staffed, and a modest reward fund is established by David to incentivize actionable information. Margaret coordinates with missing children networks to ensure the case profile remains visible without drifting into rumor amplification. These actions matter procedurally because visibility sustains tip flow. They do not change investigative structure. In the case file, the final page of the first-month summary reads like a ledger of effort. Sector maps are annotated with completion dates and team leads. Interview indices point to transcripts by witness category: family, vendors, tourists, buskers, rangers, MBTA staff, maintenance crews. Evidence logs list items found and tested with notes: no match, non-probative, fiber analysis inconclusive. Tip line reports are tallied with disposition codes: A closed, verified non-match; B scheduled follow-up, C logged. From here, the investigation moves into an iterative cycle: re-interview, re-canvass, remap, review. The first month did not deliver a resolution. It established a baseline and preserved a case in a condition where future technology, future tips, or future confessions could intersect. The park is the same as it was on that Sunday afternoon: grass, brick, water, families. But for investigators, it's now a place mapped by layers of effort rather than leisure. The grids have been walked, the sectors assigned and checked, the air above once cut by helicopter blades is now quiet. The case transitions, not ends. The work continues. The disappearance of Sophia Thompson did not fade from Boston's collective memory as summer turned to fall in 1996. For investigators, the case became a constant presence: files stacked in offices, tip sheets pinned to corkboards, and maps marked with colored pins. The first month had produced no resolution, but the machinery of inquiry did not stop. Detectives re-interviewed witnesses. The logic was simple: initial statements often miss details, and memory sometimes sharpens with time. Vendors were asked again about the crowd near the fountain. Buskers were questioned about faces they might have overlooked. Park rangers repeated their accounts of patrol routes. Each transcript was compared against the originals, looking for discrepancies or additions. The tip line continued to generate calls. Some were credible, others speculative. A caller from New Hampshire claimed to have seen a girl resembling Sophia at a rest stop. Detectives coordinated with state police, dispatched officers, and interviewed the family at the rest stop. The child was identified as traveling with her parents. Another call placed Sophia in Connecticut walking with an older man. Officers checked bus stations and malls in the area. No match was found. By 1997, the case had expanded beyond Boston. Interagency coordination became routine. Detectives shared information with police in Rhode Island, Maine, and Vermont. Flyers were distributed across New England. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children featured Sophia's case in its bulletins. Technology was limited, but investigators used what they had. Composite sketches were refined. Age progression images were produced, rudimentary compared to later standards, but useful for public distribution. These images appeared on television programs dedicated to missing children. National exposure brought waves of new tips, most of which dissolved under scrutiny. In 1998, a report surfaced of a child in upstate New York resembling Sophia. Detectives traveled, interviewed the family, and compared photographs. The resemblance was strong enough to warrant DNA testing, but the results ruled out a match. The child was not Sophia. The years passed. By the early 2000s, the case was transferred to the cold case unit. Detectives reviewed the file with fresh eyes. They examined evidence collected from the park, fibers, photographs, interview transcripts, and considered whether new technology could yield results. DNA databases were in their infancy, but samples from the Thompson family were preserved. No matches emerged. Anniversaries brought renewed attention. In 2006, the 10th anniversary prompted a recanvassing of Boston Common. Detectives walked the paths again, interviewed new vendors, and checked whether any witnesses had surfaced. Nothing new was found. In 2010, the case was integrated into the National Missing Persons Database. This allowed cross-referencing with unidentified remains and other missing child cases. No correlations appeared. By 2015, facial recognition technology was applied to old photographs. Investigators scanned images from malls, airports, and public events, hoping to find a match. The system produced several possible hits, but none held under closer review. Throughout these years, the Thompson family maintained persistence. Margaret joined networks advocating for missing children, attending conferences, and pushing for stronger interstate protocols. David maintained the reward fund, ensuring the case remained visible. Anna grew into adulthood, pursuing nursing, while Ben studied engineering. Their lives moved forward, but the case remained a constant backdrop. Parallel to the investigation, Sophia lived a hidden life under another name. Harold Green, the man who had taken her, was a widower who had lost his daughter years earlier. His act was impulsive, born of grief and disorientation. He drove Sophia from Boston to upstate New York, renaming her Laura Hayes. He told neighbors she was his granddaughter, orphaned in an accident. Sophia was 5. Memories fade quickly at that age. Harold reshaped her reality with stories. He explained her past as tragedy, her present as stability. She accepted his words, too young to challenge them. By 1998, Harold moved with Laura to Ohio. He worked as a mechanic, steady and unremarkable. Laura was homeschooled at first, then enrolled in a small-town school. She grew into a reserved child, polite but quiet, with few questions about her origins. Her upbringing was controlled, but not abusive. Harold provided food, shelter, and routine. He discouraged curiosity about family history, redirecting questions with simple answers. Laura noticed gaps. No photographs of her mother, no clear memories before age 5. But she accepted the explanations. Through adolescence, Laura blended into her environment. She attended school events, worked part-time jobs, and maintained friendships. Teachers described her as diligent but introverted. She excelled in reading, preferred solitary activities, and rarely spoke about family. By the 2010s, Laura was in her 20s. She worked at a bookstore, lived independently, and visited Harold regularly. His health declined, but he remained her anchor. She felt vague curiosity about her past but lacked concrete details. Meanwhile, the investigation in Boston continued its cycles. Detectives revisited the case in 2015 with facial recognition, in 2017 with expanded DNA databases, and in 2018 with renewed media coverage. Each effort produced activity but no breakthrough. By 2018, the case had reached another wall. Leads were exhausted, technology had been applied, and the trail remained cold. For investigators, the file was thick but stagnant. For Laura, life was ordinary, shaped by routines and the quiet presence of Harold. It is 2019. Boston Police Department's cold case unit is under renewed pressure. Across the country, law enforcement agencies are revisiting unsolved disappearances with the help of advanced forensic technology. Among the files stacked in the evidence archive is the disappearance of Sophia Thompson, missing since May 1996. For many detectives, the case is familiar. Her photo once appeared on lampposts, her name repeated in press briefings, her case number logged in countless reports. Now, with new tools available, the file is reopened. Detectives begin with evidence re-examination. Items collected from Boston Common in 1996 are cataloged again. Fibers from clothing, photographs of the fountain area, witness transcripts, and a soda cup found discarded near the fountain. In 1996, the cup was logged but yielded no usable evidence. In 2019, forensic scientists applied DNA phenotyping. A partial profile emerges, fragmented but enough to suggest a male contributor. The profile is uploaded to CODIS, the National Offender Database. No direct match appears. Still, the profile is preserved for cross-checking with emerging ancestry databases. Chain of custody is verified. Evidence logs are reviewed to ensure no breaks occurred. Detectives confirm the soda cup was sealed, stored, and transferred according to protocol. This matters. Without chain of custody, the profile could be challenged. With it, the profile becomes admissible. The Thompson family is contacted. Detectives explain the new initiative and request updated DNA samples. Margaret, David, Anna, and Ben comply. Samples are collected, logged, and stored. Detectives also encourage the family to submit to consumer ancestry kits. Commercial databases often provide matches unavailable in law enforcement systems. The family agrees, understanding the potential reach. Parallel to official work, detectives monitor online forums dedicated to cold cases. Sophia's disappearance remains a topic of discussion. Users post theories, scanned clippings, and timelines. Occasionally, tips surface. In 2020, one user claims to have seen a woman in Ohio resembling the age-progressed image of Sophia. Detectives follow up, contacting Ohio police. The lead dissolves, another false match. Still, the monitoring continues. Online communities sometimes provide unexpected breakthroughs. By 2021, genetic genealogy becomes central. Detectives partner with labs capable of cross-referencing DNA profiles against public ancestry databases. The partial profile from the soda cup is uploaded. Matches are distant, third cousins, fourth cousins, but one cluster suggests a link to families in upstate New York. Investigators note the region. Background checks begin. Property records, employment histories, and vehicle registrations are pulled. Detectives look for individuals who lived in Boston in 1996 and relocated to New York shortly after. Among the names is Harold Green. Records show he lived near Boston Common in 1996. By late 1996, he relocated to New York. By 1998, he moved to Ohio. Employment records list him as a mechanic. No criminal record exists. Detectives flag him for further review. His name is added to the suspect board. In early 2023, Harold Green died of illness. His granddaughter, known to neighbors as Laura Hayes, was left to sort through his belongings. In the attic, she discovered a box. Inside were newspaper clippings from 1996, all about a missing child in Boston. A small toy, worn from age, journal entries in Harold's handwriting. The entries were vague but suggestive. References to the day at the park, the child, new life. Laura sat on the attic floor, the dust heavy in the air. She unfolded the clippings one by one. The headlines were stark. 5-year-old missing from Boston Common. The photo showed a girl with bright eyes, a yellow dress. Laura felt a strange recognition. The toy in the box. She remembered holding it as a child. The journal entries unsettled her. Harold had written about a chance to begin again, a child who needed a home. At first, she tried to rationalize. Perhaps Harold had collected these clippings out of grief. Perhaps the toy was coincidental. But the alignment was too precise. The age-progressed images released years later resembled her own face. Laura's thoughts spiraled. If this is true, then who am I? For decades, she had accepted Harold's story, that she was his granddaughter, orphaned in an accident. Now, the evidence contradicted everything. She felt a tightening in her chest, not panic exactly, but disorientation, as if the ground beneath her had shifted. She decided to act. Laura purchased a consumer DNA kit. The process was simple. Swab, seal, mail. But the waiting was not. Each day she checked the status online. Each night she replayed memories, Harold's explanations, the gaps in her childhood, the absence of photographs before age 5. Weeks later, the result arrived. The words glowed on her screen. Close relative match, Thompson family, Boston, Massachusetts. Laura stared at the screen. Silence filled the room. She was not Laura Hayes. She was Sophia Thompson, a child taken from Boston in 1996. The realization carried no cinematic rush, only a cold clarity. Her identity had been rewritten, and now, piece by piece, it was unraveling. She sat in silence, aware that every memory she thought was hers had to be re-examined. Harold's bedtime stories, the explanations for missing photographs, the insistence that she avoid questions, all of it now reframed. She felt anger, confusion, and a strange grief for the life she thought she had. Yet beneath it all was a steady resolve. She needed to know the truth. Laura contacted Boston police anonymously. Her voice was steady, but inside she was unsettled. She explained the discovery, the DNA result, the box of clippings. Detectives responded cautiously. They requested an in-person meeting. Laura arrived with the box, the toy, and Harold's journal. Detective Elena Vasquez took lead. She reviewed the materials, logged them as evidence, and initiated verification. The toy was shown to the Thompson family, who confirmed it belonged to Sophia. The clippings matched the timeline. The journal entries, though not explicit confessions, contained enough detail to suggest Harold's involvement. DNA comparison was expedited. Laura's sample was matched against the preserved family samples from 1996. The result was conclusive. Laura Hayes was Sophia Thompson. Chain of custody was documented. Lab reports were filed. Case numbers were updated. The verification process was complete. Investigators conducted background checks on Harold Green. Records confirmed his residence near Boston Common in 1996. His relocation to New York aligned with the disappearance. His move to Ohio matched the timeline of Laura's upbringing. Employment records showed stability. Medical files confirmed his illness. No prior criminal record existed. Still, the circumstantial evidence, combined with Laura's discovery, confirmed his role. The family was notified. David, Margaret, Anna, and Ben were briefed in person. Detectives explained the evidence, the DNA results, Harold's involvement. The tone was factual, procedural. Plans were made for a reunion. For investigators, the case file was finally ready to close. The verification process was complete. DNA confirmation, physical evidence, journal entries, family corroboration. Harold Green was deceased, eliminating the possibility of trial. The file was marked solved, pending final documentation. It is late 2023. The DNA results are conclusive. Laura Hayes is Sophia Thompson. Investigators, the case file is ready to close. For the family, the next step is reunion. The meeting is scheduled at Boston Police Headquarters. The tone is procedural. Detectives brief the family first, the evidence, Harold Green's role, the verification process. Then Laura enters. Introductions are factual, names, ages, timelines. Anna, now 36, a nurse. Ben, 29, an engineer. David and Margaret, older but steady. Laura, adjusting to the reality of her identity, listens and responds. The reunion is structured, monitored, and documented. Officers remain present, not for security, but for record. The first words exchanged are simple. Names, confirmations, acknowledgments. No dramatics, no cinematic embrace. The podcast narration emphasizes the formality. In a small room at headquarters, after 27 years, the Thompson family met Sophia again. The moment was not theatrical. It was procedural, factual, and carefully observed. After the initial meeting, Laura visits the old neighborhood. Detectives accompany her, noting locations relevant to the case file. The fountain at Boston Common is revisited. Photographs are taken, not for sentiment, but for closure in documentation. Police finalize their report. Harold Green's involvement is confirmed through journal entries, clippings, and Laura's testimony. His movements in 1996 align with the disappearance. With his death, no trial is possible. The file is closed with a notation. Perpetrator deceased, victim recovered, case solved. Legal processes follow. Laura initiates a name change, reclaiming Sophia Thompson. Court filings are straightforward: petition, verification, approval. Therapy sessions are scheduled, noted in case documentation as part of victim support. Media coverage is managed through official statements. The family releases a brief message thanking investigators and emphasizing the importance of persistence in cold cases. No interviews are granted. Privacy is maintained. Advocacy continues. Margaret, already active in missing children networks, uses the case as evidence for the value of DNA technology. David maintains involvement in reward funds, now redirected toward supporting other families. The Thompsons emphasize procedure over emotion, focusing on lessons learned. Sophia adapts to her new identity gradually. She settles in the Boston area, pursues community work, and integrates with her family through shared activities. Investigators note her progress in follow-up reports, ensuring victim services are engaged. By late 2023, the case is fully documented. Harold Green's history is compiled: addresses, employment records, medical files. His lack of prior criminal record is noted, as is the impulsive nature of his act. The file includes a timeline from 1996 to 2023, mapping investigative steps, false leads, technological applications, and final resolution. The conclusion emphasizes investigative lessons. DNA technology has transformed the landscape of cold cases. Databases, consumer kits, and genetic genealogy provide breakthroughs that traditional methods could not. Persistence matters. Files preserved, evidence cataloged, interviews recorded. Without those, the case could not have been solved decades later. You've just listened to the full story of the disappearance and recovery of Sophia Thompson. Cases like this remind us of the persistence of investigators, the power of technology, and the importance of never giving up hope. If you found this episode informative, please consider supporting our work. Like the episode, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future investigations. Every click helps us bring more stories of cold cases, breakthroughs, and lessons learned to light. Thank you for listening, and remember, behind every unsolved case, there is still a family waiting for answers.